Warning. Absolutely everything I'm about to talk about is beyond sickening, disgusting, and vile to its very core. Okay, I'm done selling you the movie. Let's jump in.
What is this?
I just like your feet.
Paranormal Activity is kind of a bad movie. And I know what you're thinking.
Move this man!
But hear me out, please. I'm begging you. Because I didn't just watch this movie on a Friday night like a normal person. No, I watched it in what I would argue is the scariest possible circumstance you could possibly see this movie in. I saw it at a test screening where the people running it assured the audience that this was real found footage from a couple who went missing. And me, being a massive Blair Witch Project fan, like the type of fan who still thinks Heather Donahue deserved an Oscar, I sat there thinking, well, that sounds fucking awesome. So I sat down with this test audience, ready to be terrified, to give my 2 cents in exchange for $50, and after watching the real found footage of this missing couple, I walked out of the theater thinking,
dude, that movie sucked.
So today, I'm here to explain why Paranormal Activity missed the mark for me so badly, not just as a horror fan, but from somebody who wanted to believe in the hype very badly. Before we continue, consider smashing that subscribe button if your taste in movies runs as black as mine. And possibly a like if you want to egg me on to keep watching this shit. Let's just make this simple. If you're not religious or superstitious, which I guess you could argue are the same thing depending on how spicy you want this take to be, then Paranormal Activity is just basically doors moving, footsteps creeping, a toxic couple arguing, and 90 minutes of night vision bedroom. The movie hinges entirely on the idea that you, the viewer, are going to watch a door move 3 inches and immediately go, oh shit, that was Satan. But if you aren't particularly predisposed to believing in demons or spirits or Hell's interior design team or whatever, then Paranormal Activity just becomes mind-numbingly boring. It has some severe sins against it. Strike 1, I didn't believe the test screening's "this is real found footage" spiel for even a second. Strike 2, I felt insulted that they even thought they could trick me like that. And strike 3, once believability goes out the window with this one, all you're left with is a couple whose relationship has the chemistry of a damp sponge. More on that in a little bit. To be fair, the director, Oren Peli, had a noble goal. He wanted to create realism-based scares. The "it's scary because it could happen to you" flavor, not the gore and guts of something like Saw or Evil Dead. Those movies are awesome, but this vision is respectable. That's the core of why I loved the Blair Witch Project so much. The chemistry between the characters in the Blair Witch Project was captivating, especially as you watch the group dynamic fall apart as they start to turn on each other and become paranoid of each other's intentions. Heather's meltdown, for example, iconic. Josh screaming in the woods, haunting. That final shot in the abandoned building's basement, legendary. Their emotional breakdowns felt real and very captivating. Meanwhile, in Paranormal Activity, Mika and Katie feel like two people who met on Craigslist to rehearse a breakup monologue. Oren said something kind of wild. He claimed that the two leads, Katie Featherson and Mika Sloat, had amazing chemistry. Sir, respectfully, what movie were you watching? Because when I watched this film, that was one of the things that made me the most uncomfortable. Mostly what I saw was awkward bickering, passive-aggressive tension, and a lot of weird sexual comments from Mika, just to prove to you, the audience, that they are in fact in a romantic relationship. And a lot of these comments really, really make you uncomfortable.
What is this?
I just like your feet.
The chemistry between these two is very different from the Blair Witch Project. I didn't believe these two were dating. I didn't believe they even liked each other. Hell, I didn't believe they would survive a Costco trip together, let alone a haunting. If you don't really believe in their chemistry, you don't really believe in Satan, and you're not fully sold on the premise, this all falls apart very quickly. Next, we need to talk about the found footage genre as a whole, because Paranormal Activity didn't just exist, it printed money. Look, found footage movies are either absolutely genius or a flaming bag of garbage. There is no in between. You've got masterpieces like the Blair Witch Project, which literally rewired the brains of an entire generation. Then you've got movies where the scariest thing is who's gonna turn their webcam off last. The mid-2000s found footage became Hollywood's favorite accidental cheat code, however, when Paranormal Activity came out, costs only a few bucks to make. And instead, made hundreds of millions of dollars. Then Hollywood realized the formula. Spend $12, tell people it's real, profit, without blood, without effects, without a set that wasn't also the director's house. Now, to be clear, I'm not criticizing low-budget horror. I love low-budget horror. I worship it. Give me a $4,000 independent movie with passion over a $200 million CGI snooze fest any day. What I don't love, however, is when a giant studio realizes they can spend $6 and a loose cracker and still make a f***ing fortune. That becomes insulting to me. You know that they could give you more, but they won't because they've realized that you as an audience will be just satisfied with less. It was expensive to make 100 Saw movies with all the practical effects and gallons of blood that are necessary, but here, all you need are some B actors that no one's ever heard of and a home video camera. Then you just throw Satan into the mix and boom, everybody makes a nice fat profit without the burden of having to make anything very compelling. Anyway, let's go through the actual movie. We start the film by thanking the families of Micah and Katie, which only makes sense with the original ending, by the way, because Katie survives in the theater version of this movie, as opposed to the original ending that I saw in theaters, which was f***ing awesome, by the way. But by prematurely thanking Katie's family, we have already committed one plot hole. Then it thanks the San Diego Police Department for added realism, who I guarantee received way too many phone calls after this movie came out. Hello, Sheriff's Office.
Is Micah all right? Have you found Katie?
Then we cut to Micah, the main character of the movie, who's carrying around a massive camera, which is another element of the movie that takes away from the believability of it. You're expecting me to believe that he's shoving this giant camera into everybody's face and grabbing it and running around with it whenever he needs to document something? This is just silly and impractical. As Katie rolls up, she points out just as much. Katie rolls up in a convertible that looks way too nice for a student. She teases Micah about his camera.
What happened to like the little handheld? Easy to move around, versatile.
Are you gonna park the car or are you gonna stand there looking at her?
And immediately you realize, Micah's kind of a dick. Her car also explains why she puts up with him. Micah has an idea as he cuts something up with Chekhov's knife. He's going to film everything. Literally everything. Every single night, he sets up a camera in the bedroom, they go to sleep, they watch the footage in the morning, then they argue, rinse, wash, repeat. This format gets tedious and boring very quickly, especially as Katie becomes more and more emo as the runtime progresses. By the end of the movie, you think Katie's gonna scream in your face. And honestly, that's basically all that happens. The only other points that I would have to mention to round out the experience would be a psychic shows up, who is, by the way, a doctorate of psychicry. Psychicry, which I didn't know they taught in school, but you learn something new every day, I guess. The psychic says it's a demon. Micah also taunts the demon like he's gonna fight it outside of a Waffle House.
You fuck with us?
Katie reveals she survived a childhood house fire, and, as mentioned, she slowly becomes more and more emo. There, that's it. That's the movie. The dialogue is rough, and Micah is responsible for about 90% of the cringe. But to be fair, he's also the only character who has a shred of personality in this entire experience. Everybody else feels like they were 3D printed and then just put on the set. But Micah actually has a few hilarious lines that mimic my own skepticism while watching this.
What if we just get the switchboard, right? And we find out what it wants, and then we just give it what it wants, and then gone.
And you almost forgive him for being such a terrible boyfriend. Am I being too big of a white knight here? Let me know in the comments. As Katie becomes more and more emo throughout the runtime, you realize that there is a deeper level going on here. The demon doesn't just want to move doors or leave lame footprints or all these other practical effects, which, to be perfectly honest, I think were overhyped. But instead, as the psychic pointed out earlier in the movie,
What it probably wants is Katie.
and that turns out to be true, he wants Katie's body. Oh, yeah. Not like that, like in a possession kind of way. And eventually uses that body against Micah. No, once again, not like that. It uses Katie's body to stab Micah's repeatedly. By the end of it, Katie is fully possessed. And here's where you get to one of three endings. The ending that I saw in theaters was actually really badass. After Katie stabs Micah, she comes back upstairs, cradling a knife, covered in blood. She then sits against the bed and rocks back and forth in a haunting, possessed manner for days. Finally, the police show up. Katie's trance snaps as they find Micah's body and see her there with the knife. Before she can even fully process what's going on,
So how's this for an establishing shot?
this ending was awesome. because it didn't take any sequels into account. It simply just wanted to tell you the best story possible and leave you with the darkest, most haunting possible ending. But once Paramount got their grubby fingers all over the print, they decided that a new ending was necessary in order to sell a new Paranormal Activity every Halloween for years to come. So they changed it so that Katie throws Mika's body into the camera and then comes up and licks it. I guess she had to get back at him for some of his pervertry somehow.
I just like your feet.
Then her face does this weird demon warpy thing, almost like she had discovered a new TikTok filter, and she eats the lens of the camera. This is why, as mentioned, the opening title, where it thanks the family of Katie, kinda doesn't make sense. As far as they know, Katie's still at large. And, in this version, also a horrific criminal as well. So thanking her family is a little strange. It made perfect sense when she got capped by the police. Here, not so much. But this ending is also incredibly corny. It's almost like the end of a nu metal music video, which would have worked in that context. But here, just to set up endless sequels, it really just makes you giggle, and not in a good way. If you're laughing out loud and there were no jokes told, that was probably a big miss on the studio's part. Okay, now we've arrived at the heart of this whole review. My real problem with Paranormal Activity, the reason why it never worked for me, no matter how I slice it, comes down to this. If you're not religious or superstitious, Paranormal Activity is boring. Completely f***ing boring. Horror works when it taps into universal fears, not theological ones. If your movie requires me to already believe in demons for it to be scary, you're not making a horror movie, you're preaching a sermon. And whenever Paranormal Activity runs out of ideas, which is often, it plays the same card. A door moved, not scary. Footsteps, still not scary. But what if Satan moved the door? Like, somehow that fixes it. Honestly, it wouldn't have mattered what explanation they used. Ghosts, demons, poltergeists, horny invisible men, grandma's spirit searching for her dentures. It all leads to the same conclusion. This is fake as fuck. Found footage lives or dies on authenticity. This never felt authentic. Not the relationship, not the scares, not the lore. So, if I don't believe in demons, then the movie is just two people who probably shouldn't be together, sleeping while Satan plays silly practical jokes. Honestly, I've had scarier nights trying to find a bathroom in a Vegas casino at 2 a.m. Anyway, that, my friends, is why Paranormal Activity didn't work for me. If you loved it, awesome.
Different strokes for different folks.
Horror hits differently for everyone. But if you're like me and your demon belief meter sits at roughly 0, this movie just becomes a 90-minute sleep study. Anyway, that just about does it for this week's episode of The Rocking Horror Picture Show. Let me know what you thought about Paranormal Activity in the comments below. I'm your host, Sleeve T, and as always, fuck off, life is pain.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy Sleeve T, and I'm on a trip right now, so I'm not at home. But I appreciate you guys watching that video. If you want to support this channel, check out the Patreon. It's in the link below. You will get your name in the credits, and also you'll get to watch every episode early on Monday, uncensored. And if you'd like to recommend movies for this fine channel, go ahead and check out the Discord as well. The link is also below. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you next time. Rock and roll.